Hello, and welcome back to the Pure Nintendo podcast. This is your weekly dose of all things Nintendo. My name is Jemma, and joining me this week, I have the captivating Kirk. Welcome back, Kirk.
Hey, good to be here. Happy Thanksgiving / Black Friday / Cyber Monday to
Yes.
to my American friends. Although,
Yes.
does Black Friday and Cyber Monday, do they carry over like to Australia and such? I mean,
Oh, big time.
okay,
In terms of sales, yes. I
all right,
mean, we don't have Thanksgiving, obviously, but we do have the sales, the related sales. And Black Friday, people thought it was last Friday, as in last week. Sorry, this recording comes out on Monday. That's going to be confusing. The 22nd of November, people thought was Black Friday because the sale started so early here. And I'm like, no, wait, Black Friday is the 29th because
yeah,
Thanksgiving was the 28th, right? So, yeah.
yeah, and it's a misnomer anymore. Anyway, nobody goes out because that used to be the big shopping day, right? Everyone had Friday off after
Mm,
Thanksgiving, so they'd all go out and shop, and so that's how all the stores finally got into the black for the year because
right.
everyone would get their Christmas stuff. But now
Ah, that's
people
why it's
shop
called black.
whenever. Yeah, nobody digs into goes out. I mean, I guess some people still go out and shop, in actual stores, but
Yeah.
it's not the thing it used to be at
Yeah, well,
all.
it's all online now, so
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and all month long.
Yeah, exactly, yes. We'll have a little bit of a chat about the sales and see if there was anything decent that we picked up. As well, this week, we've got a new Professor Layton trailer to talk about, some new music that's dropped on the Nintendo Music app, as well as some classic games on the Switch Online, along with the games that we're playing. But first of all, we wanted to start off with, I guess, what was the biggest news of the week, which wasn't even Nintendo's news, but it was just so weird, surprising. I don't know. The reaction to this is so funny, but Sony actually announced that the PS2 has now sold over 160 million um, consoles, and it was just such a random piece of news because how old is this device now? 20 years or so,
Okay, yeah,
something like that. And Nintendo just, recently, as in earlier this month or earlier, sorry, this podcast will be in December. So earlier in November, I think around the 5th or so, Nintendo released some details about their previous quarter sales, and they'd said we have reached over 146 million. So the gap has continually been closing between the Switch and the PS2. So people were wondering if the Switch would ever reach or overtake it. It's just such odd timing now that Nintendo said, "Yeah, we got 146 in our last quarterly report," and then Sony's come out and said officially, "Hey, we've got over 160." So
what
where did
what
yeah.
what were they before? Like, what before this
Well,
announcement? What was Nintendo chasing?
so it was 155 officially, and then earlier this year they did say it was 160, but now they've come and said it's over 160. So it's just all very weird. Like, where's the exact number? Like, Nintendo is like 146.04 or something, right? Like, it's an
Yeah.
exact, or more exact. And where's Sony getting the extra devices from at this point in time, 20 years
Yeah,
later? Like,
that's my. Did they find a truck somewhere
yeah.
in the woods full of them? They're like, all right, well, let's get rid of these. Yeah,
Yes.
that's it's weird. I don't know how people are buying new units of a PS2 anywhere. But
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly. Yeah, so it's quite funny. So the reactions online were quite amusing. They were very much like, we're calling, kind of BS on this, Sony, like, what's going on here? And yeah, obviously we're waiting to see what Nintendo's next quarter looks like, but that's not till, I suppose, when is the next quarter? Is it March? Is that the next one? Is that the last one for the year? I don't know, but
Yeah, probably end of March. Oh, yeah, I don't
yeah.
know. Yeah,
So we'll see
Trev
what
and
they.
Justin. We need
Yeah.
Trev and Justin
Yeah.
for that info.
Exactly. And their sales for the last quarter were down from their projected amount. I think there was 2.64 that they sold during that quarter, I guess from whatever it was up until August, I think it was. Or since August to November. And that's probably not the biggest period of time to sell. And I'm sorry if my dog is in the background barking. I don't know what she's doing. uh, she's just like, yeah, I don't understand these sales data either. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, she's
Uh,
angry with PlayStation.
yes,
You've trained your dog well.
thank you. And so they're projected, I think it's 12 million or something for the year, for the fiscal year. And obviously we've got Christmas coming up, the holiday season, Thanksgiving has just happened, Black Friday. So we would expect the sales to be bigger this next quarter, most likely. Um, it's still a bit of a ways off 160, and it just looks like Nintendo. They don't necessarily care. I don't think they're not like chasing that specifically. I don't think no one from Nintendo has come out and said we're trying to beat Sony or PlayStation 2, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, it's just a fun thing that fans seem to like discussing. And the other interesting thing I read online during the week when this was sort of being talked about was the PS2 was super popular because it was a DVD player as well. At the time, it was a cheap alternative to a DVD player. So a lot of people actually bought it. I'm not defending, I'm not saying the PS2 is bad. I know it was a very popular system. I personally did not have one, but I know it was very popular. I had lots of good games. But a lot of people also just bought it because it was a DVD player, which might have helped bump their numbers a little bit. I don't know if that's the reason for the recent bump though, because no one uses DVD players anymore, do they?
no,
Not really.
I can't imagine. I'm trying to think of the last time I was in a store where they even still sell them. I know it's still mostly
Yeah.
Blu-ray and 4K to an extent, but
Mhm.
yeah.
Yes.
Aside
Yeah.
from the like the PBS fun drives where they're showing you like Beatles or CCR clips, and then you can get pledge $10 a month and get a DVD. That's the only time I see
Yeah.
anybody talking about DVDs is when PBS is giving them away.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So, yeah, Nintendo would need to move another whatever, 14 or so, 15 million now, I guess, to surpass that goal. I mean, the Switch will continue to sell once we have a Switch successor, but,
Yeah,
it'll drop off significantly. So,
yeah.
maybe in 20 years' time, it'll be
Yeah, well, yeah. The Nintendo trucks will or the shipping container will float ashore like just happened with the PS2, and
Yeah.
Nintendo will finally get over the hump in 20-25 years.
Yeah. Yes. So join us in 2044 for the update on that. If we're still going by then, gosh, episode 1000. Uh, yeah, so that was interesting news. Did you have anything else to add to that?
No.
No. And I think the DS is still in between anyway. I think it's 150 something, isn't it? 152 or 4. Again, we need Trev for the exact
Yeah.
numbers, but I believe it's in between those two. Yes, so the humble switch, go you good thing. We'll see how you fare by the end of your
Yeah.
lifespan. But yeah, speaking of Thanksgiving, as we were earlier and Black Friday, a lot of the sales do seem to end over the weekend. So by the time we launch this podcast, they will have ended for the gaming side of things at least. But I thought, was there anything that you noticed that you'd picked up, for example, that
There
you?
is.
Yes. Okay.
After we went off the air last week, you
Hmm.
remember I hurried up and talked to Trev about Etrian Odyssey
Yes. Yes, I
because it was
do.
on a massive sale and it's a game I've been looking at for a while.
Hmm.
I didn't get the trilogy. You could get all three. I can't remember what the price is. Like normally $80 and you could get it for 30 or 40. It's probably still on
Hmm.
sale in there.
Hmm.
I wasn't sure if I wanted to get all three, so I got the first one to try that. And between the sale and the gold coins that I had saved up, I think I paid $7 for the game. So
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
yeah.
That's very that's a good deal right there. Yes. Excellent. Have you had a chance to try it yet?
I have. I didn't like it, but I'm I'm glad I didn't get the the trilogy, but I think that's because I just don't know exactly what I'm doing yet. The
Mhm,
mapping
mhm.
was weird to me, and the first level is you have to map in order to advance. So I'm trying to figure that out, and it's one of those games where you have to pick a party, but it does nothing at the beginning of the game to explain to you like what would be a good setup or to find a good strategy. I found one online and I set up my 5 players, and 2 of them were not able to do any damage in the turn based battle at all. Like
Okay.
1 or 2. Something
So,
about skills, but I couldn't assign the skills. I don't know what the process is for that, or I didn't have the right skill points. So I was
oh,
completely
yeah.
lost and thought, you know what? I got games I got to review anyway. We'll put this aside for now and
Yes.
come back later.
Fair enough. Yes. I haven't delved too much into Etrian Odyssey. I think I played maybe a demo or for some reason I remember playing it on the DS or the 3DS, one of them. And I had a similar experience to you where I just did not know what was going on and I gave up very easily. I just did not pursue it any further.
Yeah, I think even if I do figure it out, which I will, I mean, I paid for it, so I'm gonna feel like I have to,
Yeah, yeah.
at least get moving on it. I am positive I will not enjoy it as much as I enjoy the Labyrinth games from Nippon Ichi, the like Labyrinth of
Mm,
Galeria and such.
mhm.
Those are more my style.
Yes, definitely.
Similar, but different enough to stand out for me.
Yeah. Well, at least you've got it, and it was only $7, so even if you don't like it, at least you got yourself a bargain there, so that's
Yeah, yeah,
something. Yeah.
yeah. I don't regret trying it out. I wish we still had the chance to go down to the local video store and just rent a game to see if I liked it. But
Yeah.
those days
Yeah.
are gone.
Yes, they're long gone, as are the days of the PS2. No, they're still selling, so
Well, that means maybe I can find a video store that'll still rent me a game. I don't know.
maybe that's what we
Yeah,
need to do is open up
yeah.
a video store just for games, like, is there a market for that? I don't know.
You
Maybe.
know, wherever the PS2s were sold, there's some like time warp city somewhere in the world, and they're going to have a video store for me. So once we track down those PS2 sales, I'll be good.
Yeah, yes, yes, I love that. Cool. Well, thank you. I don't have any particular sales, exciting sales information. I did tease Balatro last week, and I guess I'll save that for the games we're playing. I did pick it up on sale. It was only 10% off, but still, I thought that was good enough to get. And yeah, so but I'll wait. I'll save that for games we're playing because I don't have a lot of games that I'm playing this week because things have been very busy. But yes, that's my one sales item, which I thought was pretty good because it doesn't go on sale very often. That one actually, I did look on the sales tracker. You can look at the history of the game
Hmm.
on the eShop, and the lowest it ever got was 10% off, and I think it only happened once, maybe in like August or something, considering it came out in February. So I just happened to notice that it was 10% off. I'm like, you know what? I want to try this this game that everyone seems to be talking about, and yeah, I'll get into it later in the show. So, if you listeners have any cool sales bargains you picked up, let us know, please. We'd love to hear them. We want to know what you're playing this weekend or holiday season, whatever you want to call it. Now, Professor Layton, we've heard of the new game coming out in 2025. We've heard about this a fair bit recently in terms of it's still happening, and it's been, the development team kind of gave us an update a few months ago. But there's a new trailer, like, I guess it's the first kind of official full trailer that shows off the gameplay and the story and the characters and the puzzles and that sort of thing. Did you get a chance to watch this, Kirk?
I did.
Yeah, so that's good. Me too. It looks really cool. What was your first impressions? Did you enjoy the trailer?
Yeah, well, I enjoy the animation. I enjoy the look of these
Yes.
games. I think I mentioned that I hadn't played one, although I was well aware of it
Yes.
for a while until I bought the first one on the iPhone. And I'm pretty far into that now.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm more interested in this series I think than I've ever been. Um, and it looked good. It looked like the gameplay was quite a bit different. I don't know if it's jumped a lot over the various releases or if this is a completely different thing, but it just
Mm.
looked like the whole pacing of it seems different from before. But I could be wrong. The video looked good.
Yeah, it did look good. I mean, it looked very nice, like the style, the kind of graphical style. But I like that they retained the animated look of the characters themselves. They kind of have that flat, cartoony look, like the actual Leighton and Luke characters. Does that
Yeah,
make
yeah,
sense? Yeah.
hand drawn animation
Yeah, yeah, it
feel to it.
looked
Yeah,
yes, looked really pretty. But the backgrounds looked really nice, and it looked, I guess, current gen, if that makes sense, but still retaining that classic look. So I like that aspect. And apparently, this one features the most puzzles in the series history, which is pretty cool. They're not shy on numbers of puzzles usually from memory. There's like heaps, right? Like
yeah, yeah,
like 100 or more.
yeah.
But
There
yeah.
really are, sure.
And I know one of the I'm bad with names and dates and things, but one of the DS entries, or maybe even 3DS, was there a 3DS one? One of the ones on the handheld device from Nintendo, had like a daily puzzle you could actually get by connecting online. You could get an extra puzzle every day, which was really cool. So I don't know if they'll have a feature like that or extra, DLC or extra whatever packages, maybe. That's very possible. Um, I like that the trailer is in Japanese. It does have English subtitles, and they do mention that it is being um, there's an English version coming. But I like that in the Japanese version, at least, the voice acting was done by the original actors of Leighton and Luke, from the previous games, because there hasn't been an entry for a few years, and we've had, it's been a bit of a dry spell, so this is why it's kind of exciting news. But yeah, it's really nice to see those original actors come back and play those roles, and they seem to do a really good job.
Mm,
Yeah, and then we still just have the 2025 release date, so we don't know when exactly. But it does have the Switch logo at the end, so we can assume, I suppose, it's coming to the Switch at least, if not also the Switch successor. Did you?
yeah,
Yeah.
it is listed in the eShop too. There
Oh,
is
okay.
no detail whatsoever. It just says releases TBD. There are no screen captures.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And the entire write up is from a series with over 18 million units sold worldwide. Solve epic riddles as you progress through the story of this puzzle fantasy adventure. That is it.
Right.
But it
Okay.
is listed.
Very simple. Very simple.
Rating pending.
Yeah. Yes. But the trailer did give, some context to the story, which obviously the eShop listing hasn't, updated yet. There seems to be some sort of ghostly, was it a gunman or something? He looked like a bit of a,
Yeah.
yeah. And he looks, he's blue, but almost transparent. And there's obviously a mystery about who he is and what he's doing there. And of course, Leighton is like, there must be an explanation for him, like how he exists and what he's doing. So that's going to be an interesting mystery to unravel. Um, yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. I think it's been a long time between titles, and I think a lot of fans are excited about this one, and hopefully it lives up to expectations and the hype. But yeah, we'll definitely let you know when we hear more about release dates and such. But yeah, check out the trailer. And the other thing, when I was just doing a bit of background research after I watched the trailer, just with the voice actors, because I saw they put the names on the screen. I'm like, I'm guessing because they've literally put the name there, it must be the original dude. So I looked it up, and yes, it is. Yo Oizumi. Why do I try to say these names? But yeah, probably
No,
have to.
no, I
But
think you got that right.
yeah, okay. Is Leighton and Maki Honkita? Kita. Yeah, is Luke. And it just, I guess I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole and found out that there was a Leighton movie, which I didn't even realize existed. I think it was from like 2008 or 9 or something like that. Quite a few years ago. It was set between um, two of the games back then. Now, it was localized into English. I had a bit of trouble finding it. There is a YouTube version of it somewhere floating around, which I started to watch. I haven't got through it all yet, but I might give that a watch. It looks like a decent, hour plus length movie, nicely animated. So, um, have you ever heard of that? Did you know that was a thing?
I did not. I just looked it up.
Hmm.
And yeah, it looks like it came out in 2009.
Yeah, there you go.
Professor Layton and the Eternal Diva.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah, so I couldn't see it on any streaming platforms in Australia, at least. So don't know if it's in the US at all, but yes, there was, yeah, a YouTube version. If
Yep.
it's there, so I don't know. I guess it must be legit. It's not like illegal or whatever. Otherwise, YouTube would have taken it down. But yeah, it's available there on YouTube. Look like the full thing. So yeah, check that out if you're interested for sure. I'll give it a view and report back. Hmm.
Yeah, and it looks like the English dub version features the same person who played Luke in the UK translation of the
Oh,
original
cool.
games.
Oh, nice. That's
Looks like
good.
it's a woman named Maria Darling played
Okay.
Luke.
Mhm. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, because 'cause I'm fairly certain the Japanese voice actors were the same for the movie as well, like, in
Yep.
the Japanese version, yeah. Um, but does that mean the Professor Layton person was different in the UK version? It
Uh,
just doesn't say that one. Yeah.
doesn't say. Wasn't called out at least
Yeah.
without digging too deep into the write up here on Wikipedia.
Yeah, the little snippet that I watched at the beginning, the intro is Luke kind of telling a bit of a story, how we got here, and it did sound like Luke's voice from what I remember, which makes sense if it was the same voice actor, so that's cool. Yeah, very cool. Excellent. Anything else to add when it comes to Professor Layton's latest outing?
Afraid not.
Okay. Well, stay tuned for that. Let us know if you watched the trailer and what you thought. Um, music. We have been privy to another round of Nintendo Music. You still don't have the app, right? Like,
I'm still waiting for that one release. that
Yeah.
will push me over the edge and get me to download it. And this week's was not it. Although I did have this game. It was one of the first
Yeah.
games I ever bought for the DS, actually.
There you go. Yes, brain training.
Hmm.
With yes, this was. I think everyone had this. If you had a DS, you probably had this game. I certainly did. And the soundtrack is, it's fine. It's quite, it's different to last week's F Zero soundtrack, which was very fast and loud and great for certain things. This one is a bit more relaxed because it is brain training, right? So it's kind of, your more ambient sounds for relaxing and nutting out puzzles, I suppose, which is what you do in the game. It did make me think, though. I really did miss this game, and I should go back and play it because it felt really good to get that little score at the end and see how your brain was exercising and doing well. I really think it's missing in my life, to be honest. I need it back. So yeah, I did give the soundtrack a bit of a listen. Yeah, and it's fine. It's a nice little background piece for work or study, I think. Um, yeah. When was the last time you played a brain training type
Boy,
game?
it was a yeah, long time, long time. I'm surprised there is not a Switch equivalent to this or something, some game along these lines. And I know this was popular enough that there were a lot of knockoffs that came out. Um,
Mhm.
but I didn't get into any of them as much as it. I mean, I would do that every day, like you said. It was rewarding, and you wanted to. I don't know
Yeah.
if it was actually helping my brain with
Yeah.
anything,
I
but I
don't know
got pretty
either.
good at the games.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and they had lots of, I guess there were 4 different, was it the brain was divided into kind of quadrants, right? There were 4 different
Yeah.
styles of training you could do. There is a Switch version though. It's a few years old now, I think.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, I had a feeling I might have reviewed this one, maybe. Maybe, I'm not sure. Might be from, like, 2020 or so, from what I'm seeing here. Um, yeah, so there is a Switch version because I was, equally surprised before it came out that there wasn't one. It seemed like the perfect fit. I don't think it took off quite as much. You know what? It worked really well with this was the stylus with the DS. It just worked
Yeah.
really well. Yeah, it was just perfect for this.
Yeah,
This one,
I
I
think
think.
having that, holding that allows them to give you more types of
Mm.
puzzles and training that you just can't do when you're working with a controller.
Yes, and the Switch version does allow you to use the stylus. I don't know if it came with a stylus. I guess you'd have to get the physical copy if that was the case, or if there's some type of, is there a Switch stylus you can get? I don't know, because it's a different type of screen, isn't it? There's like
Yeah,
capacitive and
it would have to.
resistive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. In
yeah.
fact, I just played around with that because with Etrian Odyssey, I wanted to try it that way, and I had to dig around for some kind of a touch capacitive pen.
Mm.
You
All
know, they
right.
have the pens that have like the things on the other end, or the it it pushes through. But so yeah, I used it, and you would definitely need it, I think, for a game like this.
Yes, yes, definitely. I think so. I think it makes it a lot easier. You can use your finger, of course. I just think the control, like if you're looking on a TV screen and using a control pad, it's just not quite the same
Yeah.
experience. But yes, so yeah, check that out. Maybe that's on sale. Maybe we should check that and see if it's on sale. That would be interesting and quite hilarious if it timed that well. Um, Yes. So the other kind of interesting release, I suppose, during the week, and there was a fair few of these. In fact, the eShop roundup for the week was like the highlights were all these classic games that came out on the Switch Online. So we've got 2 Game Boy games in the form of Donkey Kong Land 1 and 2, and 3 Sega Genesis games in the form of Toe Jam and Earl, Vector Man, and Wolf of the Battlefield. So yeah, that there were no sort of main or major releases this week. There's a whole lot of games released on the Switch. Don't get me wrong. There's like 20 or more games to check out. But in terms of that they usually highlight a few big ones. If there's a Mario or something, or any big game like Stray recently was one of them. There was no such game this week. So the highlights were Donkey Kong Land 1 and 2, which did you maybe not try these ones because you weren't a Game Boy person, I believe?
Correct. I don't think I've
Yes.
ever played one. Or no, maybe I have a memory. I don't. Did they release one for like the Wii? It sounds like a game I rented or borrowed at some point just to see what all the hubbub was. Um,
Well, so it's the Game Boy version of Donkey Kong Country. So it's a bit like
Okay.
how we've got Mario World on Super Nintendo, and then we had Mario Land on the Game Boy. There's
Gotcha.
Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong Country 2 were Super Nintendo titles, and then there's Donkey Kong Land 1 and 2, which are kind of stripped down versions because the Game Boy wasn't as powerful as the Super Nintendo, obviously. But Rare, the company, the developers, they did an amazing job of making these games as good as making them as well as they could for and look as nice as they could for the Game Boy, given, obviously there's color they don't have color schemes. It was kind of that green and black or whatever you want to call it. Um, so these were kind of, yeah, not as many levels and not as much detail, but still very, robust games for the little handheld system that could. I didn't really play these 2, to be honest, back in the day. I did play the Super Nintendo equivalents, and I loved those. They were massive, huge games at the time. These 2, I really would love to give a go, actually, because I'm interested to see how different they are and how they run, comparatively to the Super Nintendo versions. When it comes to the SEGA titles, though, I think we talked offline that we weren't familiar with any of these 3. They seem to not be, well, I'm gonna say they're not main releases, but I also wasn't really a Genesis person. I had, like, Sonic and maybe a few others, like Columns, I guess? I don't know. I mainly had a Genesis for Sonic, though. So, it was my one foray into a system that was not Nintendo. It was my Sega Genesis. So definitely heard of Toe Jam and Earl, but we were saying for some reason we thought Vector Man sounded the most interesting.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
'cause I also had a Sega Genesis. In fact, I owned that before I ever owned a Nintendo device.
Right. Uh-huh.
But I never had any of these games. I can't remember what it was about Vector Man that made me think it was something I wanted to try and then never did.
Hmm. Yeah, I it just sounds familiar, but I don't know why. It looks like a little green dude running, is it a run and gun kind of thing, like a platforming adventure, something like that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think sort of like Contra was that kind of game.
Mm. Yeah. It certainly looks interesting. I mean, there's so many games to play on the Switch Online. It's expanding quite well, which is great, and it's nice to see these releases. And they do it in little groups. So there's 3 new Genesis titles. There's 2 new Game Boy titles. It is steadily growing. I do hope it sort of carries across to the Switch successor. I assume it will. This little Vector Man, he sort of looks robotic, I guess, or like a suit that's disjointed, like his legs don't quite touch his, kind of torso area. I'm not sure what's going on there. Yeah, so it might be an interesting one to try if you haven't already. It's difficult to get into the classics if you haven't kind of got the nostalgia for them because there's so much else to play, right? Like you find yourself having that issue.
Yeah, yeah, and the fact that the more modern games have come so far,
Mm,
in
mhm.
like accessibility and longevity, it's like I think as we've discussed before, a lot of these games, in order for you to get your money's worth when they were so short back then, they had to make them really difficult. So it just took you a long time to really get to the point where you could push through it.
Mm.
Um, and I don't have that patience anymore.
Yes.
Um, with so many other things to do. So yeah, I think if this was a game that I was heavily into, like what was the Switch game? Sunset Riders was the one that I got day one with Sonic the Hedgehog when I got my Genesis.
Ah,
If
yeah.
they
Mhm.
if they release that on here, and I think that is actually available via Arcade Archives. But the Sega version, if they put that on here, I would have more of a connection with that, and probably would be able to spend more time with it than one of these games, which may be better, but I just don't have the experience or the nostalgia for it.
Mm. Yes, me neither. Like Toe Jam and Earl, we've definitely heard of. I don't know if this is even the first one or if there are multiple in the series because it sounds like it's not the first one. And I never played those. I remember seeing ads for them on TV and thinking, "Oh yeah, that's weird." But it just wasn't a thing that I got. But yeah, I was definitely more invested in Super Nintendo. I was very lucky to even have 2 systems, as a child. I don't know how I managed that. But, games were, only came around for birthdays and Christmases, so I tended to get the Mario type of games more often than not, and then it was just the Sonics for the Genesis. So yeah, didn't have much room for much else, unfortunately. Perhaps if I was an adult, it would have been a different story, but
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah, but that's true too. I didn't even think about that. The only time you ever got new games back then, at that age and at that time, was your
Mm,
birthday and Christmas.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So
you were a kid. You couldn't get them yourself, and they were too expensive to bug
yes.
mom and dad for a new release. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
wow.
and you didn't have the little budget games on the eShop because there was no
Yeah,
eShop. So,
and then
yeah.
you'd get like 5 or 6 of them on one day.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. So, yes, I don't know. I'll try to try. I'll try to try. I'll see how I go. It's just such a busy time at the moment, and there's so much to play and enjoy. I'm still going with other games, but I'd love to give Donkey Kong Land 1 and 2 a go. I believe well, if listeners have any nostalgia for any of these games, we'd love to know. Please do let us know. And yeah, I'll make an effort to try at least one during the week and see how I go with that. Anything else to add about Switch Online or any of these titles, Kirk?
No, not these. It's the
No.
same with like the Nintendo Music app. I just need to wait for the right thing to make me hop in and because I subscribe. I'm online
Mm.
plus, so I get all these, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just don't take advantage of it.
Yes. Yes, that's the thing. The app is it's a really good app, the Nintendo Music app. It's free if you are a Switch Online subscriber, and it works very well. It is, slowly growing. I kind of wish they'd release more than one a week. I think they might need to add a couple. I don't know how many games would be in Nintendo's catalog because it's obviously first party games, I'm assuming, right? Like you couldn't just add something that wasn't a Nintendo published game.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it's limited in a sense, but we do have 40 years worth of games to consider. So maybe they're just teasing it out until they get something, until something hooks Kirk in. Um, yeah, and I've definitely been using it for the I've really been enjoying some of the Animal Crossing sounds, which I don't even recall hearing in the game, and I'm not necessarily a huge Animal Crossing player anyway, but some of these tunes are just lovely, and they're really good at night, just very relaxing tunes. Um, and you can extend them, like I've said before, you can extend some songs, and these are some of the ones you can extend. So you do 15 minutes worth of this song, and you kind of just fall asleep to it. It's really, yeah, it's very soothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is yeah, it's almost made me wanna play Animal Crossing, almost. Not quite, don't have time for that. But let's move on to the games we do have time for this week. And I did tease last week and also earlier in the show, of course, Balatro, which, are you aware of this game, Kirk? Is this something
Uh,
you're across?
no, I know it suddenly like popped into the pop culture awareness.
Yes.
Like, was it nominated for something? And so everybody was
Yes.
freaking out. Is that okay? Yeah. So I took a quick look at it and like one screen capture, I was done. So I'll have to learn about it from you.
Yes, fair enough. And I'm a bit the same. I had not even heard of this game. It came out in February on the Switch, at least. I think it came out maybe everywhere this year. I don't think the Switch release was um, necessarily delayed, from my understanding. Maybe you can look at that while I talk. But it is a card game, and Justin mentioned it. We had a team meeting recently, and Justin mentioned it, and I'm like, What is Balatro?" And he's like, "It's this game. You'll be addicted. It's like a super addictive game that you can't stop playing." I'm like, "Okay, that sounds interesting." As I said earlier, it was on sale. I decided to give it a go just because I kind of wanted to know what all the fuss was about, really. And I think it was about 20 odd dollars in Australia, minus the 10%. So not too bad, but not cheap either. And I thought, because they talk about it being a blend of a roguelite and a card game, I thought it'd be like you do battles or you play against people. You don't, it's just you, which is fine. It's just not what I thought it would be. But it is addictive, I will give it that. It's, very simple, yet there's a lot of versatility. So you're essentially playing round after round of, I guess it's sort of like poker. You get given a bunch of cards each hand. It's a full deck you have next to you, and you have, I can't remember, sorry, 7 cards maybe, 6, 7 cards
Looks
dealt
like
out.
8.
8? Okay,
8.
8 cards, yep.
At least the one screen capture here, I see 8 across the screen.
Yeah, and well, there are power-ups as well you can get, so, you can increase that number as well, but let's just say 8. Correct me if I'm wrong, listeners. 8 cards, and you make 2 pair or a flush or a full house, whatever, right? Like, you use those cards to make a hand, and then you play them, and you get points for them. You can discard cards. You have sort of 3 or 4, you're allowed to discard 3 or 4 times. You're allowed to play up to, I think it's 3 or 4 by default, and then you can get more as you go along, so it might be 5 hands. So you've got 5 chances to play cards and earn points, and there's a threshold you have to reach with each round. If you pass that threshold, you get coins as a reward, and then you get to hit the shop and you can purchase little bonus cards. So it's very fast paced in that sense. Like a round is only like a minute or 2 long. You could do it in 30 seconds or less if you have a really good hand. Um, and then there's kind of 3 rounds, and the final round is kind of like it's called like a boss round or something where there's like, a special sort of situation. It's really annoying sometimes, like face cards, like kings, queens, and jacks are face down, so you can't see them. You can't see what they are, which is obviously then very hard to use them if you wanted to, you know, do a full house or a two of a kind or whatever it is using those cards. You just like, I've got 3 face down cards. I don't know what they are. They could be queens, kings, jacks. There could be one of each, right? So they're kind of special things like that. So I usually just discard those. But the point is the each you have to get through 8 rounds of 3, and that's, I think, the end of a run. I have not ever made it to the end of a run. I get to, like, maybe 5 out of 8. So, and to help you, you unlock jokers, and the jokers are really cool, and there's a whole lot of them, and they do different things, like, basically earn you extra points, so they multiply your cards. You can get things like 10s and 4s might be worth more, like, they get multiplied by 4 or something like that. Um, you can get something that says if you get a full house, it's times 15 or something, right? So you can only have 5 jokers at once. So you kind of at the start you have 0 jokers, you buy 5 as you go along, and then you can swap them out if you get better ones. So it's a deck builder in that sense, in that you want to build your joker sort of section to help you get the maximum points that you can. And I'm like doing really well at the start. Like at first I had no idea what I was doing, but I've played it a few times now. And so the last time I played, I was like killing it. I was doing so well. And then I got to this boss round, and I couldn't. It was like you needed some ridiculous amount of points. And the boss kind of condition in this particular one was your multipliers are halved. So I just couldn't get enough points. I think I needed like 12,000 or something, and I got like 10 or 11. I was close, but not close enough. So, but it is fun. I will say it is quite fun. And you can level up your plays. So, say Full House is a thing. We all know, right? That's a pair and a 3 of a kind together in 5. You can level that up, and so you hit level 1. Sorry, you start on level 1, then you get level 2. That gives you more, like multiplies it by more. It's obviously worth more if you get a full house at that point. Then you can level up to level 3, level 4, etc. So if I get a lot of, say, 2 pairs seems to be a common one for me. Maybe 3 of a kind. Flushes are kind of hard to get, right? Just like any card game. If you've ever played poker, I'm not a huge poker player, but I kind of know the hands. And like a royal flush is like super hard. But yeah, so if you're getting a power up, I tend to do things that are common for me, like 2 pair. So I level up my 2 pairs if I can, because I know it's a common thing, and it'll get me heaps of points. So yeah, it's I don't know whether it's game of the year, to be honest. I don't know how that happened. But it is also a mobile game. I can see it working very well on mobile. I'm obviously playing on the Switch. It does work really well in handheld. Like, it's a nice thing to just play, like, on the couch or in bed, whatever, you know, in handheld mode. It works quite well for that because it is just a card game. Um, it works fine on the screen too, the TV screen, but yeah, it's definitely feels like a mobile. Like, it feels like something you would play on the go or just dip into and out of quickly kind of thing. Um, I think the reason it's done well is because it's a brand new game. It's quite different in terms of a card game. It's also I think it's a new like, the developers I think it's like an indie studio. I think this is their first title from memory. So I guess it's, kudos to them kind of thing. Yeah, what else can I tell you? That's it. It's very in essence, it's simple because there's no voiceovers, there's no characters. It's just you, the cards, and the jokers, and getting the points, really. So that setup, it's kind of good in that way because it is very easy to jump into and play. You can customize your deck. You unlock different colors and things, different schemes, different character. Like there are character cards I've seen. There's like a Witcher set for some reason. I don't know if it's the Witcher like the game and the show. It just looks like a gothic version of the cards. And there's some other set I've unlocked too. There's 3 that I've got at the moment. There's also different colored cards. Yes, there's a few little customization things there. Also the text is very small. That sounds like a niggly thing to say. I'm not reviewing this game. It's been out since February, but yeah, on the screen, on the TV screen especially, it's like quite hard to read the little text. But that's just by the by. I'm glad I bought it. I don't know how addictive it is for me, but maybe I'm not a gambler. I'm not a poker player, but it's certainly fun. It's certainly. I did find myself the other night just wanting to just sit down for 5 minutes because I had a busy day. I'm like, you know what? I just feel like playing Balatro. I just want to play it. So I just sat down and I played it. And I did not win. Yeah. I'd
Do
like
you think it appeals more to would it appeal more to deck builders or to fans of games like solitaire or something along those lines, poker, blackjack?
Yeah, that's a good question because it is a bit of a mix of both, I suppose. Like, I like solitaire. I don't play it very often anymore. I guess I used to, when it came with like, well, you're a Mac person, but it was on Windows, right? It was just there. It wasn't like
Yeah,
Windows 90,
yeah.
95 or
That
something.
that and Minecraft.
Yeah. So I just remember people playing it constantly. I haven't played it in years, but I have played it with an actual deck of cards because my grandfather he taught me solitaire and all the different versions of solitaire. So I do like that. I just haven't done it for a very long time. I just don't, there's a lot of other things to do now. So I guess so. Yeah, I think it would appeal to players of solitaire, but the deck building part is fun and it's fairly light on in terms of you only need 5 jokers. You can unlock these other things that are I think they're called tarots, and you can get 2 of them at a time, and they're one use only, whereas the jokers stay mostly, they persist. There was one I had the other day that was like, there was a 1 in 6 chance it would disappear after a round, which seemed a bit of a threat. It didn't actually disappear ever. I just after a round, it just said safe, and I'm like, "Phew, I guess that 1 in 6 hasn't happened this time." And it was a really good one. I think it was I can't remember, 15 multiplier or something. So that was a nice one to have. Um, and I'm not really a huge deck builder player either. So, you know, I don't think so. I think those who do like it would get a kick out of it. It's, a simple version of a deck builder. Because you've got your 52 normal cards, like it's a normal deck of cards on the side, and then you're kind of the jokers is the deck you're building, I suppose, which is only 5, like I said, and then the tarots. I don't even really use them as much as I probably should, but yeah, they're kind of one-off things. That's where you level up. You can level up your plays, and you can do little things like that that just help you out during a round. So there's a bit of strategy to it, but it's also I find it a lot of luck because if you draw terrible cards, well, you're kind of stuck, right? Like it's
Right.
just yeah, just why I don't gamble. So it's all luck, and I don't think I'm that lucky. So yeah,
Yeah, and then if you do get a deck of cards, if you're like me, you don't even recognize it and don't know what to do with them and end up blowing it anyway. So
yeah.
never been that good. But I was also taught cards when we got the Intellivision system, which I've talked about
Mhm.
before. In the we early '80s for us, it came with Las Vegas poker and blackjack,
Ah, yeah. Mhm.
which is not a good game to. If you're getting a system and that's what it is,
Yeah.
but it taught me, poker. I was playing 5 card stud, 7 card stud. It had blackjack, so I used to know all the rules to these. And
Mhm.
now, no.
Yeah, I had to look up. I couldn't remember whether, like, a full house was better than I can't remember what I was looking up now. Like a straight, like or even just 5 cards of one, um, suit like 5 random clubs. I don't think that's particularly good compared to a full house. I think a full house is better. I can't even remember now. Yeah, so but it doesn't matter, and you kinda have 2 things that like, multiply to give you points. There's a thing called chips, which I guess is what you're betting, I suppose, and then there's the multiplier. So you kinda need to balance your chips with your multiplier, so you end up getting, like, 20 times 50, and then you get a huge score, whereas if it's just 1 times 10, well, that's just that's very small. Um, yeah, so there's definitely a lot of strategy. You have to choose sometimes whether it's better to discard, your lower cards to hope for more, aces or something, because maybe you've got 2 aces and you want 3 or, you
Hmm.
know yeah, so there's a bit of a risk reward situation happening. But yeah, I can see why it's addictive, but I think you'd have to be a certain type of player to find it addictive. Yeah. Like if you already like cards, if you like blackjack and poker, you will love it. Like it's kind of like I've read that it's like poker, like a cheating version of poker because of the jokers. It's not it's not exactly cheating because you're still playing poker. You're still doing a full house. You're still doing your, 2 pair or whatever. But the jokers, it just kind of enhances it. So I don't think it's cheating. I think it's just you're trying to beat this game, which is throwing these crazy high scores at you to surpass. They start off quite low, and then obviously it builds up. And the cool thing is you can skip. And I've only just realized this, or I realized it, but I didn't know if it was worth it. But last time I played, when I got quite far, it seemed to work in my favor. You can skip. I think it's called a bind. So each of the 3 rounds within the 8 is called I think it's called a bind, and so you can skip the first 2 binds, which before the boss one, and if you skip it, and then if by the time you get to the 3rd one, if you beat that boss, you kinda get a reward for skipping it, like you get a free joker card or, you can choose 1 of 3 other cards or something good happens. So there's a bit of, strategy there as well, I suppose. Yeah. Anyway, it's a fun little game in between, I'd say, other games, for sure.
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, I certainly understand it now better
Yay.
than before.
Well, that's
I
good.
still don't understand why it's blown up the way it did.
Yeah,
Um,
I thought there was more to it. I really did. I thought there was, like, epic kind of boss battles, like actual boss battle. I thought it was RPG with cards, like a deck builder, I suppose. I thought there was more of that. You'd have actual demons to fight or something. But no, it's not. It's literally just cards, which is fine if that's what you're after. So, yeah, I would I would recommend it if it's I mean, if you're into cards, go for it. It's fine. I don't regret my purchase. I've played it a few times during the week, so I've certainly had a good experience with it, and I'll probably keep playing it, I suppose, especially over the holidays. I'll jump in and out a little bit, I think, in between reviews. Yeah.
okay, yeah, sounds suited to that.
Yeah, yes. But let's move on to what you're playing this week. Kirk, what have you got for us?
I'm playing a game called Dungeons of Dreadlock: The Dead King's Secret, which just came out yesterday as we record this. It came out on Thanksgiving.
Oh, cool.
This is the sequel to a game which was out before. In fact, speaking of sales, and I mentioned this in the review, the original Dungeons of Dreadlock is on sale right now for $1.99. So if it sounds like this is interesting to you, by all means, hop in and grab that because, for what I understand, the gameplay is the same, and the
Wow.
sequel is $14.99 right now in the eShop. So,
That's
um,
pretty good. What is the original, like, what percent off is that? That seems like a big discount.
well, I think, about 80% because I believe it's
Wow.
$9.99 normally.
Wow.
Um, and it's a puzzle game. It's a kind of a unique puzzle game. Most of the levels, actually, we'll say all of the levels take place inside this dungeon. It's grid based. You're moving turn by turn, um, except the enemies don't. And like, there's no speed to it. It's just you're kind of like moving left, right, up, down on this grid. And every level is a puzzle. You have to move around and say flip the right levers or throw rocks onto like these floor traps to activate things, and you need to figure out what to do. But the problem is there are multiple enemies and other traps for you. that it's not like a lot of these games where you move and the enemy moves and you move and the enemy moves. The enemy's just going to chase you down. And you're stuck within these paths. Now they are too. They can't just move wherever they want. But so not only are you trying to solve the puzzles to flip the right devices to get to where you need to be, but you're also avoiding all of these enemies. And the enemies come in many shapes and sizes. So quite often, I would say on 98% of the levels that I played, they're over 100. I haven't completed it. You're going to die a lot of times before you even figure out what's going on. Some of the levels, like the enemies don't move until you get close enough to them, so you can kind of suss it out, figure out what to do. Um, Other times, they're just going to start moving at you right away, and you need to immediately figure out what you got to do to stop them. You do have some weapons available to you. You have like a wand where you can cast things, but you get limited uses for that. The game started me out with a spear, and I swear the spear disappeared and took forever to come back. Uh, Sometimes, like if you're going to need like a rock, I mentioned the floor traps that you have to like drop things on. It gives you everything you need in order to unlock the right doors or get to where you need to be, but it doesn't always give you a weapon. So a lot of times you're either just perfectly timing the things that you need to do in order to not get hit, or some enemies, if you just if you can always hit them, and a lot of the enemies that's enough. Many it's not. So it's a very interesting, very quickly paced game. You'll be looking at a level and figure out in 15 to 20 seconds. Other times you could be there for 5-6 minutes before you're able to figure out what to do and then actually execute it. So it's unique. It's very engaging. It's one of those games where you finish a level and the next one just pops up right away. Well, actually, you either go up or down stairs, and I think and I mentioned this in the review too. I never realized how badly I want a musical cue for when I'm going down the steps. Because you hear this musical cue each time your character goes down the steps, and after it's in your head after about three, and then you're not shaking it, and just I grew to love it. I don't know. And you do have to go up and down steps a lot because some of the levels you'll be down on a floor and realize you need to do something on the floor above. So you have to go back up, which sounds like it would be annoying. If you're having trouble with a puzzle, then you're not sure if you forgot anything. The game is very friendly in that when you're on a level, if you can't figure it out and try to go back upstairs and there's no reason for you to do so, it won't let you. It'll just say, you got to figure this out right here. And they always give you everything you need to figure it out. The interesting thing about it too is I found it extremely difficult at the beginning because the puzzles just didn't work the way a lot of puzzle games do that are built like this. I had to really start to think the way the game wanted me to think. So after about the first 4 or 5 levels, then I got into it, and now it seemed like I had like the beginning level puzzles until you get up to around like 20, 30, 40, where they start to get really challenging. So that was unique too. But once you get into the flow of it, it's a very engaging, cute little game.
Yeah, it certainly looks yeah, it looks really cool actually. I love the top-down perspective. I love the puzzle element. And I can't believe the first game is only $2. Like it's on sale until the 19th of December by the looks of it. So that
Yeah,
one is an ongoing sale, not just part of kind of Black Friday. If listeners are interested, I'm kind of interested to be honest. It just looks, yeah, it looks kind of cool. 100
yeah.
levels. Um, yeah, and the kind of the colorful looking kind of graphics looks really neat. Is the story of the first one? It says you're out to save your little brother. What's the story of the second one? Is it similar?
Uh,
You.
Actually, there is a connection. You don't need to have played the first one in order to play the second. But in this
Mhm.
one, you're a member of the Order of the Flame, they call it. The description here, I'll just read it directly, says you embark on a holy quest to find the crown of wisdom. I Throughout the game you're playing like this wizard, and she keeps seeing another character, and I believe that's the character from the first game. Like there's a connection there, so it's kind of intertwined.
Mm.
um and the story, like you're moving along and you start to engage with this other character who's kind of doing the same thing you are. and you keep getting a warning from I don't know if it's the leader of the Order of the Flame, but she's very much okay. You got to stay on track. Forget about that person. Sorry, let him die. Whatever. You've got to do this, and we need to count on you. And you're like, okay. And then so there's enough of a story to kind of like keep things moving along. I don't think the story was, judging from the way I described it, obviously it didn't stick with me as much as the actual gameplay and the puzzles did.
Mm,
But if you're looking for a story, if you need that to get through 100 plus levels of puzzles that you have to solve, it's enough. But it's not
mhm.
terribly engaging.
Yeah. And even the eShop listing actually for the sequel that you're reviewing, it says episode 2 of the Dungeons of Dreadrock trilogy. So they've obviously planned at least 3 in this series, meaning we can look forward to more in the future.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And I haven't reached the ending here, so I don't know what kind of cliffhanger they're going to leave us with.
Mhm. And how
But
many hours of gameplay do you think it is for this one?
oh boy, I'd have to look to see how much I put into it. I think I'm up to about 5 or 6 hours now. I can't
Mhm.
imagine. It would depend on how quickly you solve the puzzles, really.
Yeah, true.
You
Mhm.
could get stuck on one that could trip you up for a while, or like if you're figuring things out quickly and you're able to get the timing down, then you would be able to breeze through it. I'd say within 10 to 20 hours.
Mm. Is it like a ranger then with the sort of movement pattern or not really? You know how the game that I reviewed earlier this year that you it's like a tile sliding mechanic. Similar? Not really.
It is. I mean, there's the tiles aren't sliding. You're not moving pieces of the
Mm.
thing around. They give you a path on most of the levels, and you need to navigate the path without getting caught by like. There are a few of them where you can see like sort of like an underground channel underwater, or it's a water channel, like a ditch that's kind of carved through, and there are the enemies are in there, so you need to walk over the little bridges that cross that, making sure that they're not next to it because they could reach up and grab you. So a lot of times you have to kind of like
Mm.
find a safe space to prevent that from happening. But also, quite often, getting into that safe space means you're trapped. And the moment you get out of it, they're going to get you one way or another.
Right.
So you may think you're safe, but you're not. You need to like get all the way through it quickly while guiding them around. You do need to like some there are like these golems on many of the levels where you kind of like have to hit them and then they'll move after you for just one block, so you have to hit them and then step away, and that way you can control where they move step by step.
Mhm.
Like there was one where I had to get the golem in the right place so that when I stepped on a trap ahead of the door, an arrow would shoot out, and I had to make sure that the arrow was going to hit him, not me. So I had to get him in place before I was able to progress.
Mm. Clever.
Yeah,
Ah, I do
and
like the
all
sound
of
of
the enemies behave differently, so you're going to get killed by them. You kind of have to until
it.
you figure out what you need to do to not get killed.
And it
So
just kind of resets when
yes,
you get them?
immediately. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not like you're ever thrown back anywhere. You're just right back at the level. You're not punished. And it has a hint system. So if you can't figure it out, you hit I believe it's the R trigger. Um,
Cool.
and it'll give you one hint. It'll say like 1 of 6. And you're like, okay, I got it. If not, you can do 2, you can do 3. And the game even tells you, don't worry if you got to get hints.
Yeah.
It's good. It doesn't feel like you're being punished because you can't figure it out. And some of the hints, I went all the way through it. I would read them 3 times and had no idea what they were telling me to do.
Okay. Oh, it sounds like a nice little game. I do like the sound of that. So yes, excellent.
Yep.
So Dungeons of Dreadrock 2: The Dead King's Secret is out now, and look for Kirk's review on the website. I don't think we reviewed the first one, did we?
I don't know. I don't think so.
No? Okay.
But my review should be up by the time this hits. So if you're listening to this, you can hit our website and likely find
Nice.
it there.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, that does sound very I'm actually very interested in that one. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a
If I
great little game. Like at night when you don't want a lot of heavy action or you don't think you're going to be playing games for a couple of hours.
mm,
It's a good game to kind of chill out with.
yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, before we close things off for the week, we just wanted to look at an upcoming release that's due to head to the Switch on the 5th of December. So that will be this Thursday. and it is called Fantasian Neo Dimension, which is from, I believe, one of the makers of Final Fantasy. And Kirk, I believe you're familiar with this one because it's not a new game exactly. It's new for the Switch, but I think it's done the rounds on the Apple Arcade in maybe 2021 from memory. And
Yes.
yeah, yeah. So is this something we should be excited about?
If you are a fan of RPGs, JRPGs with very unique combat systems and decent stories, yes, it very much has a Final Fantasy feel to it, as you
Hmm.
mentioned. It's directed by Hironobu Sakaguchi,
Hmm.
who I actually met and interviewed at an
Did
E3 a while
you?
back.
Oh,
Not about
cool.
this game. He had released a game for the iPhone called Terra Battle.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
he had a game for the Wii. Oh, what was that called? I shouldn't have brought that up before I looked what the name was. The whole, it was, but that same kind of game that's going to drive me nuts. And I thought of it because there was a crossover between that game and Terra
Ah,
Battle.
uh-huh, yeah.
But this game, yeah, it was. I can't remember if it was one of the first games for Apple Arcade. I know it was one of the first, if of the Apple Arcade games that really hooked me and made me decide to subscribe.
Oh,
And
nice.
to this day, it's still my favorite.
Mhm.
Yeah, the unique thing about it, I mentioned before when they first announced this, is that the backgrounds are not computer generated. They're like dioramas. They're actual physical
Mm,
things that they built and photographed, and then they put the gameplay on top of it.
that's so cool, yeah.
Yeah, it has a really unique look as
Mm,
a result throughout the whole thing. I'm looking through the screen captures here on the eShop, and none of them show that. Oh, there's one. Okay, there's one at the very end that kind of shows like a little city. It's almost like sort of like a Star Wars kind of desert town.
mhm.
And you can see how it's built and modeled, and they have the characters within it. So, uh, but yeah, it's got this unique system where I don't know how they're going to do it on the Switch, on the iPad, or the iPhone. You could kind of drag. You would click on the character you wanted to attack and sort of like pull back, and that would create an arc or a path for your weapon. And so you could like sort of do this like a Boolean curve and make sure that your weapon hit as many people as you wanted to, or um, on within the battlefields there. And again, no screen captures on the eShop, so you have to look this up elsewhere. On the
Yep.
battlefields, there are power ups and certain things that you could get. So if your attack hits that on its way to one of the enemies, then you would get that power up too. So it's got a very fun, very unique battle system in that regard. I will have to see how they pull that off
Yeah, interesting.
without. I mean, maybe on the Switch screen, you might be able to. They'll just keep the same sort of like touch controls,
Mm,
but with the
mhm.
gamepad, we'll see.
Yeah,
And like some of the Final Fantasies, it starts out very linear. They're just kind of pushing you down a path, and then after a long while, then suddenly it kind of opens up, and now you're moving all over the place and exploring and getting a lot of side quests that you didn't have before. It's got a fun story, young protagonists and a lot of romance, a lot of melodrama. But the characters are fun and just a really, really good game that I'm glad to see is expanding outside of Apple Arcade to a bigger audience.
excellent. Well, that sounds very promising. So, yes, thank you, Kirk.
Yep. I
Um,
will say I'm surprised it's $50.
yeah, right, okay. That's the
That
price.
that
I didn't
seems
check
like
the
a
price.
lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Maybe there's going to be more content than we got on the iPad, but for a game that's been out this long and has been on another system for a while, the
Mm.
price hit me. But again, it's Square Enix, and that's what they do.
Yeah, that is quite substantial. So in Australia, it would be
Yep.
even more. It'd be probably 60 or 70 maybe. I don't know. I have
Yeah.
to check. Yeah, that's significant. So definitely not a
Yeah,
cheap
if
game.
they drop this by half or maybe even $20, I would consider getting it again and starting over.
Right.
But no,
Mhm.
I'll just be happy. Actually, I got to fire up my iPad and see if I can still play it. A lot of time the games disappear from Apple Arcade once they're available elsewhere,
Oh,
so I'll have
yeah,
to see if it's
okay.
still there.
Yeah, see if it's there before it comes out.
Yeah.
Do you think it disappears, like, on the same day that it releases or, like, a little bit before?
You know what? I'm going to do that right now. Let's launch it because I have my iPad right
Yeah,
here,
nice.
and
We can find out live.
Yep, there's
so to
the
speak.
arcade logo, and no, there's the Mistwalker logo. I think we're good.
Oh,
Yep, it
okay.
loaded.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, still there. Yeah,
Yep,
it was
no
released.
loading.
It says it was released in two parts. So how did that work in April and August of 2021? Was there like a?
Oh yeah, the first part I mentioned where it kind of splits open
Oh
into
yeah.
like a bigger thing that came later. So
Ah,
yeah,
okay. Hmm.
and that's where I got to it. I never finished it, but I did complete the first part, and then when the new part came out, I got into that a little bit. And do need to wrap that up.
Yeah, fair enough. So I guess this Switch version would have both parts in one,
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
which might explain the price, I guess, a little bit. But Apple Arcade, is that just a subscription service and you can play anything on there? Is that how it
Yes,
works? Yeah.
they get a set number of games, and they're typical mobile games. Although they do have a pretty impressive lineup of like some top tier games, but you get all of them without ads.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, all the games are free because you're subscribing, and then there's no ads or in-app purchases in any of them.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, yeah, it definitely sounds like a nice one for December since, we're coming in for the holiday season. I guess there's not as many big releases this time of year, but, this is certainly one to consider. I don't know if we'll be reviewing it or not, but we'll see if that's a thing that happens. But yes, if let us know, listeners, if you have experienced it or if you're excited to experience it for the first time on the Switch or again on the Switch. Anything else to add with that one, Kirk? Before
Well,
we,
I don't think
yeah,
so. I do recommend. I wish there was going to be a demo so people could try it out because
that would
it's
be perfect. Yes, I would definitely
yeah.
try a demo.
And it
Yeah.
really is one of those things where you need to see the visuals to get a feel for how unique it is.
Yeah, I don't know why they put that one at the end, like you said, on the eShop. The last one has that little
Yeah,
background. The rest are just
yeah,
close-ups of
these are
characters.
literally the worst screen captures they could have put in. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess they introduced the characters nicely, but
Yeah.
yeah, there's no gameplay here whatsoever, and only one shot of these glorious dioramas that they built for
Yeah.
every location in the game. It must have taken them forever.
Yeah, I actually I love that they did that. It's kinda like how, with animations that's, all on computers now as opposed to hand drawn or like you've got things like Shaun the Sheep where they actually do use dioramas as well, which is really
Yep,
neat. Yeah, I do love that. I think it just feels a bit more authentic and that it just looks and feels different, I think.
yep.
It's a nice way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's almost like I don't want to say endearing, but like you connect with it, like you
Mm,
because you can physically see the amount of time that they put into it. It
yeah.
helps you want to be in there and be part of it.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I get that for sure. Excellent. Well, thank you. Fantasia Neo Dimension releases on the 5th of December, so keep an eye out for that one. Thank you very much, Kirk. We're sort of at time. So, anything else you want to add before we close things off for the week?
No, just encourage everyone to hop into like we said before, check your wish lists and see if any of the games you've been
Mm,
waiting for have gone on sale. Now's the time to do it.
yes, I've been doing a lot of wish listing lately because that's your recommendation. I wish listed Dungeons of Dreadrock 2 while we were just speaking. So, see when that one goes on sale. I might pick up Dungeons of Dreadrock 1 while it's on sale because it is $2 and that's just like
Yeah, yeah,
nothing.
it's hard to pass that up.
Yeah. Do you reckon you'll purchase that one since you've played the sequel now? Would you be interested in?
I won't this sale simply because there are so many puzzles in this one that I will be
Mm.
done with it. I think
Yeah.
by
Yeah,
the
fair
time
enough.
I'm done, but it is something that I will add to the wish list for down the road.
Nice.
Hopefully, it goes on sale before 3 comes out, or else I'll really be too far behind.
Yeah. Well, number 1 came out, looks like 2022, so it looks like it's about 2
Okay,
years. 2 years between each one, at least for the first 2, so we'll see if the next one is a 2026 thing. Maybe it's quicker because maybe they've, progressed further since the first one, but yeah, might be next year at least, we'll see. We might have to look that up and see if there's any news on that one. Anyway, awesome. Thank you so much, Kirk, for joining me this week. And thank you, listeners, for joining us to hear about all things Nintendo. If you want to read more about what we do, you can hit us up on purenintendo.com for all the latest reviews. We're also on social media. Blue Sky is probably our main one at the moment. We're also on Mastodon as well as YouTube. And if you want to support us, you can head on over to patreon.com/pure Nintendo, where you can get yourself a copy of our magazine, which is being prepared right now for release in the next kind of 4 to 6 weeks. And until next week, though, thank you and game on, everybody. Bye.